Power rarely leaves quietly. It doesn't vanish in a single moment. It collapses inward, inside the mind of the one who once held it. This video is not about reporting events. It is a psychological exploration, a thought experiment. If Nicolás Maduro were to lose power, if authority, control, and command were suddenly stripped away, what would happen inside his mind? How does a man who once shaped reality for millions adjust to a world that no longer responds to him? In this episode of SHIMELIS'S INSIGHT, we examine the psychology of power, the shock of its loss, and the quiet, often unseen collapse that follows when a president becomes powerless. Power does not arrive as corruption. It arrives as comfort. At first, decisions feel heavy. Responsibility feels real. The weight of consequence is present. But over time, something changes. Voices soften. Obstacles disappear. Systems adjust themselves around one individual. Psychologists have long observed that prolonged power reduces the brain's sensitivity to feedback. When resistance disappears, reality weakens. The leader does not wake up one day transformed. He adapts. And adaptation, when unchecked, becomes distortion. For someone like Maduro, who has spent years consolidating control, this isn't just about political strategy. It's a neurological process. The brain literally rewires itself to expect compliance. Contradiction feels like an attack, not just on an idea, but on reality itself. The world starts to look exactly like the leader wants it to. This isn't a moral failure at first, it's a cognitive shift. The mind becomes insulated, protected from the friction of opposing views. Over years, this creates an echo chamber not just in the halls of government, but inside the leader's own head. The ability to empathize with those who disagree or suffer under his policies diminishes, not necessarily from cruelty, but from a growing inability to even process their reality as valid. Power doesn't just corrupt, it isolates. This leads us to the strongman identity. Authoritarian leadership is not just political, it is psychological. Strongmen often develop a belief that they are the state, that without them, chaos follows. This belief is reinforced daily, by loyalists, by fear, by controlled narratives, by isolation from contradiction. Over time, identity fuses with authority. The leader does not say, "I hold power," he believes, "I am power." And once identity fuses with control, losing power is no longer political. It becomes personal. It's an existential threat. For a leader like Maduro, his public image, the strong, unyielding father of the nation, isn't just a persona. It's a psychological anchor. Every speech, every military parade, every declaration reinforces this fusion. He sees himself not as a steward of Venezuela, but as its very embodiment. Challenges to his rule are perceived as attacks on the nation itself. This fusion is a powerful defense mechanism. It justifies extreme actions because, in his mind, he's not protecting his position, he is protecting the very fabric of society. To admit failure would be to admit that the state, the nation he claims to be, is a failure. This makes compromise impossible and makes the loss of power a form of psychological annihilation. The man cannot be separated from the office. Now imagine hypothetically the moment power ends. No ceremony, no explanation, no gradual transition, just removal. The brain reacts before thought can catch up. Heart rate spikes, time distorts, the sense of agency collapses. This is not fear of punishment, it is fear of irrelevance. The world no longer bends, it stands still. And for the first time in years, the leader is not obeyed. In that single, silent moment, the entire structure of reality crumbles, the phone call that isn't answered, the guard who doesn't salute, the door that remains locked. These are not just logistical problems, they are cracks in the foundation of his identity. For years, his will was reality. He spoke, and the world moved. Now, he speaks, and there is only silence. The neurological pathways that were once reinforced by constant obedience are now firing into a void. This creates a state of profound shock. The mind struggles to process a world that has suddenly stopped responding. The fear isn't just about what comes next. It's the terrifying realization that you are no longer the cause, but merely an effect. You're no longer the chess player, just a piece on the board. The first stage is denial. This is temporary. This will be corrected. They still need me. Denial protects the ego from collapse. But when days pass and nothing changes, the mind shifts. Anger replaces disbelief. Blame replaces reflection. Betrayal becomes the dominant narrative. Not what did I do, but who turned against me. This is not cruelty, it is psychological survival. The mind cannot immediately process the idea that its core identity, I am power, was a delusion. So it finds external enemies, it points to traitors, foreign plots, and disloyal subordinates. This externalization of blame is essential. To look inward would be to face the crushing weight of irrelevance. For a figure like Maduro, the list of potential traitors would be long. He would likely replay conversations, searching for hints of disloyalty, constructing a narrative of betrayal that keeps his own self-concept intact. This isn't a calculated political move, it's a desperate, instinctual defense to prevent the ego from shattering. The anger serves a purpose. It provides energy and a sense of control when all real control is gone. It's easier to be furious at traitors than to be terrified of being nobody. What follows is not guilt, it is humiliation. Humiliation is different from shame. Shame says, I did something wrong. Humiliation says, I no longer matter. For someone conditioned to command, silence is unbearable. Orders dissolve into echoes. Presence carries no weight. This is where the mind either fractures or retreats inward. Some relive past victories, some imagine returns. Some detach entirely. Acceptance is rare. This stage is a profound and private suffering. The public fall is one thing, but the internal collapse is another. Humiliation is the experience of being seen as insignificant by the very people who once defined your significance. Every news report that doesn't mention him, every former ally who now speaks of the new era, is a small cut. The mind, stripped of its external power, might retreat into a fantasy world, a loop of past glories, of adoring crowds and absolute authority. Or it might numb itself, entering a state of dissociation where nothing feels real. This isn't about remorse for past actions. It's about the agony of being a ghost in a world that you once commanded. The silence is the loudest sound, confirming your new status as irrelevant. Before, movement followed intention. Now, intention stops at the body. Someone else decides when to eat, when to speak, when to sleep. Time no longer belongs to the self. This loss of agency is psychologically devastating because it reverses the entire identity structure. Power once confirmed existence. Now, existence continues without power. And the mind struggles to reconcile that reality. Think about it. For years, every minute of his day was an extension of his will. His schedule shaped the nation's schedule. His desires became policy. Suddenly, that is gone. He is subject to someone else's timeline. This is more than just imprisonment. It is the ultimate loss of self. The very act of deciding the core function of a leader is taken away. This forces the mind into a state of learned helplessness, but on a grand scale. The brain, which was wired for command and control, is now forced into a state of pure passivity. It's a form of psychological torture that requires no physical action. The identity built on I decide is confronted with the reality of is decided for me. The struggle is to find a reason to exist when your entire previous reason for existing has been surgically removed. This story is not unique. History repeats it endlessly. From emperors to executives, from rulers to managers, from public figures to private lives. Whenever identity is built solely on control, its loss creates collapse. We see smaller versions of this every day. Loss of status, loss of position, loss of authority. The lesson is not political, it is human. Think of the CEO who is forced into retirement and feels lost. The respected community leader who is voted out of a position. Even in our own lives, when we tie our self-worth exclusively to a job, a role, or our ability to influence others, we set ourselves up for a smaller scale collapse when that role is gone. The story of a fallen dictator is an extreme example, but the underlying psychological mechanism is universal. It is a cautionary tale about the danger of fusing who you are with what you do or what you control. When that external scaffolding is removed, we are left with a fundamental question about what remains. Power does not disappear the way we imagine it does. It does not fall with noise or end with spectacle. Most of the time, it ends quietly inside the mind of the one who once depended on it. If Nicolás Maduro were to fall, the greatest loss would not be position, not protection, not even freedom, it would be identity. Because when power defines who you are, its absence leaves a question no title can answer. Who am I now? This is not a story about one man. It is a reminder of what power does to the human mind, how it can comfort, distort, and quietly replace self-awareness. And when it ends, reflection arrives without invitation. In the silence that follows authority, there are no commands, only thoughts. And sometimes, that silence speaks louder than power ever did. This has been SHIMELIS'S Insight. Thank you for thinking with me. And do not forget to share and subscribe.